What's up everybody, Jared here with CarBuzz.com, and this week I am bringing you a review of the 2022 Hyundai Elantra, but this is not just any Elantra. This is the sportiest Elantra that they make. It's called the Elantra N. So obviously Hyundai started with the Veloster N. They also had the i30 and i20N in Europe, but we didn't get those here. And now they've expanded the lineup with this Elantra N and the Kona N that I drove a few weeks ago. This is one of the greatest sports sedan bargains that you can buy right now, so I can't wait to give you a full walk around and test drive of this car. We're going to start with the front end, where the new Elantra just overall is a very aggressive car. You have this very sharp nose front end, kind of similar to the Sonata, except I think much more aggressive. And obviously because we have the N version, you get even more aggressive styling. You've got this red lip down here that runs all the way down the side and back of the vehicle. That is exclusive to N models. It makes them just look much, much sportier. You've got this kind of cool, I think it almost looks like a spider web grille as well. These very sharp angular headlights as well. You've got our N badge here on the grille. This is a very aggressive, sharky looking exterior in the front end here. Now listen, if you're not a fan of like super over aggressive design, you probably won't like this. It is a little bit boy racer-ish for some people, but I happen to think it's quite cool. And one design element that I'm kind of softening on right now is this black element here. I used to think I wish this was body color, especially on the lighter colors. They do kind of a powder blue called performance blue that looks really, really good on this car. But the black here just kind of remind me, I actually compared it to a Isuzu Vehicross with its kind of chunky plastic face. But I think it looks a lot better with this darker blue. In fact, I love this darker blue. I think it looks fantastic. Now moving around to the side, we've got our 19-inch N wheels that, again, kind of remind me of like a spider web pattern. They look fantastic. We've got Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. Those are probably the best tires you're gonna get right now. Like, that just goes to show what kind of performance we're talking about here. And we do have 14.2-inch brake rotors here with a red N brake caliper. Again, we have got our red N body kit running down the side here. The Elantra in general just has very aggressive styling. You can see these cool contours in the bodywork. That's gonna be standard on pretty much all Elantras. You've got this cool piece here on the C-pillar as well. Moving around the back, we've got quite a rather large spoiler that pops up out of the trunk. Again, very aggressive tail light styling. This connected tail light bar looks really darn cool at night. And down here, we've got this very sporty looking diffuser with this kind of racing brake light down here as well. Big dual exhaust pipes. This is a true dual exhaust, and just wait until we get it out on the road so that you can hear it. It is fantastic. Now, interesting part about this spoiler, if I go ahead and hit the little trunk button here, usually the deck lid would lift up a little bit more than that because it is kind of like spring loaded, but this spoiler is kind of so heavy that it really just like falls down unless you lift it all the way up. It is a very, very heavy element here on top of the trunk. We do have regular hinges here, a very nicely sized trunk, very wide, very large opening here, but there is something hampering it. We have this big red bar here, so the seats drop down as one piece so that you could put some larger items, you know, as like a pass-through, but this is structural. This is gonna help make the car more rigid and more fun, but it does cut into your ability to put large boxes in between the cabin, because obviously you cannot take out that red bar. So that is a little bit of an impracticality there that you wouldn't otherwise get on an Elantra. Now, in terms of the back seats, they are this leather on the outside, suede on the mid pieces with a little bit of blue stitching. That's the Hyundai blue color here. We have fantastic legroom. I'm going to sit, this is where my seat is positioned behind me, and look at how much legroom I have. That is simply crazy. So these are these really cool N Sport bucket seats. We'll see them from the front in just a second. You only get these on the Elantra N, and Hyundai says they actually shaved off a good portion of the backing to clear up. I think it's about like a tenth, like maybe half an inch of legroom or something like that. I'll get the number in just a second. But look at this legroom. This is fantastic. I have plenty of room back here. Now again, the Elantra is not a fancy car. This is still an Elantra, so we don't have air vents or anything too crazy back here, but I do think that the actual legroom is better than what I experienced in the Kona N, which has a shorter wheelbase than this. So if rear seat comfort is going to be your priority, I think you might be better off with this Elantra N versus the taller but shorter Kona N. All right, so now we're gonna see what those seats look like from the front. They are very cool. They've got really nice bolstering to them. Again, leather on the outside with the blue stitching, suede on the inside. You've got these really cool N logos. These actually light up at night, which is really cool. They are manual seats, of course. You're not gonna get power seats. You know, for the amount of money that this car costs, Hyundai had to, you know, cut corners somewhere. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and close the door. And I'm gonna go ahead and start it up with our push button start. There we go. I'm also going to move it just a little bit because the light has shifted, just to give you guys better viewing experience. All right, that should be a lot better with the lighting. So the reduction in the rear seat backing is actually 2 inches of legroom more. 2 inches is a lot. Like, that is a huge difference. So 2 inches is what you're going to get more in the Hyundai Elantra N, which is great in terms of knee room. And they've actually lowered these seats about 10 millimeters compared to the base Elantra, so you do sit a little bit lower as well. So we've got 2 screens, both are 10.3 inches. So we have our gauge cluster screen here, and then we have our main infotainment screen here. Now this does all of the functions that you would expect from an infotainment screen: Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, both wired, no wireless on these larger Hyundai screens still. But the cool thing is going to be this N mode screen. So this is very similar to what you'd get in like a BMW M car or perhaps a Mercedes AMG car. You're going to see your RPMs, your throttle position, oil temperature, engine temperature, a lap timer. This is a very track focused car. You can click this button for circuit and it will actually give you different circuits around America. There's Homestead, Miami, a close track by me. And over on this side, you're going to have your G meter. You're going to have your launch control that we're going to try out a little bit later. You have more performance options like a shift light. You have N power shift, which is going to maximize your shift speeds. That's on the dual clutch transmission. You have active sound, so you can get a little bit of more sporty sound in here, but trust me, you don't really need it because the exhaust is just so loud in general. And you've got 2 custom drive modes here. So you have a custom 1 and a custom 2. And basically you can customize the engine, steering, suspension, transmission, exhaust sound, traction control, and the limited slip differential, which only has 2 modes, but the rest of them all have normal, sport, and sport plus modes. So this is my custom 1. This is how I like to drive the car, so we'll see that as we get it out on the road. I like engine in sport plus, steering in sport, suspension in normal, because I think it's a little bit too stiff in sport or sport plus, transmission in sport, because, you know, I like to drive around normally and sport plus can be a little aggressive, exhaust sport plus, traction control sport, and ELSD sport. That is how I like to drive around the car. Now, you don't have to go onto the screen to access these modes. You can do it right from one of these 2 buttons. One push is going to put you into your full N mode. So that is basically all of these settings in Sport Plus mode. You also get this really cool gauge cluster screen where the tachometer is in the middle. You have your turbo boost, pressure, torque, all of these really cool readouts, very track focused. You're not going to have your radio or anything else there. One more button push on this left one is going to put me into my custom 1 mode. Custom 2 mode is over here on the right side, and you can customize what these buttons do. If you're not really going to use 2 N modes, maybe you're only just going to use one of them, you can turn this into a basic drive mode selector, which you have down here. These drive modes aren't as cool. You have normal, sport, and eco. Sport like makes a difference with like shift times and stuff like that, but it is not nearly as aggressive as that N mode. So I don't really know why you'd want to use these when you have the N mode buttons, but you can customize what that button does as well. Let's see, if we come over here to setup, and then we go to, oh, never mind, it's under button. So here you can choose what the left or right N buttons do. So you can have them be your custom 1 and 2s, and you can shift between the regular N mode. You can have it be your basic drive modes, like I said, or you can have it be your lap timers. So you can stop or start the lap timer on that, which is quite cool. We have the 8-speed dual clutch transmission, so we do have paddle shifters on this really nice leather steering wheel as well with perforations. It's a great steering wheel. So we also have our N shifter. We've got the little N logo here, our little blue N stripe. It works just like a normal shifter. You can get a 6-speed manual transmission as well. The other thing that we are going to get, because we have the 8-speed dual clutch transmission, is this big red button. And I kind of like to think of it like the button from Men in Black in the car. Don't hit the red button. And then eventually you need to hit the red button, and it does some really cool things. It's called N grin shift. It's basically an overboost function. It is really darn cool. So I'll show you that a little bit in a little bit when we get it out on the road. And we still do have some really nice drive assists as well. We've got lane keep assist over here as well, our traction control off button. We have our steering assist here. The only thing that this is missing is adaptive cruise control. No N model in the US has adaptive cruise control, which is a little bit weird because they do get them in Korea. We do have dual zone automatic climate control as well. We've got heated seats on these really nice seats as well. No ventilated seats. You actually do get those in Korea, which is kind of surprising as well. We have a wireless charger here in front of the shifter that you can also just use as storage as well. 2 cup holders. You do get a regular handbrake as well here on the American model. I believe in other markets they have one of those E handbrakes, and we also have a sunroof as standard. Not everybody is going to want a sunroof, but they did go ahead and put that there on the Elantra. So that is all you really need to know about this interior. But the main thing you really need to know about the Elantra N is how it drives. So let's get it out on the road. All right, so time to get the 2022 Hyundai Elantra N out on the road. And just like with the Kona N that we drove just a few weeks ago, we've got Hyundai's 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder under the hood, produces the same amount of power, 276 horsepower, and the same amount of torque, 289 pound-feet of torque, going out to the front wheels only. We happen to have the 8-speed wet clutch, dual clutch transmission, but you can also get a 6-speed manual transmission. And I just want to take a second to talk about that transmission. It's a really, really good one. I do love driving the Elantra N with the manual transmission, but if you are going to spend the $1,500 to get this dual clutch transmission, I believe that that is absolutely worth the money you're spending. It is a great transmission. You know, it makes it more livable. Maybe, you know, you're going to be daily driving this car, and the dual clutch transmission is great for that. But to seriously enjoy the Kona N, I've got to push the N button. That's going to put us into all of our sportiest settings. My steering just got a heck of a lot heavier. And what we're going to do is do a launch control. So I'm here on this N screen. I'm going to activate launch control. It's going to stay active for a few minutes. Foot on the brake, foot on the gas. I have it set to a 3,500 RPM red line launch. Ready? Oop, nope. Ready? There we go. There it goes. Wheel spin, and then it grips. Oh my God. And then that exhaust just crackles and pops. So there's a lot that just happened there. We've got the N corner carving differential is what they call it. It's a limited slip differential that works on the front axle, and it is magnificent. It just controls wheel spin on this front wheel drive car with 289 pound-feet of torque so well. So we have traction control fully off right now in this N mode that I put the car in, and you know, it slipped a little bit, but then it certainly found its footing and gripped Thank you, dual clutch transmission, for just figuring all of that out. Thank you, launch control, for figuring all of that out. And now, oh my God, this car is just so much fun to drive. Again, that end corner carving differential helps put the power down in a straight line in a launch control situation, but it also just really helps you apply power while you're turning as well. Like, a lot of front wheel drive cars will struggle with torque steer. This just doesn't have it. This just doesn't have that old school front wheel drive feel where you just can't really power down, wheel stays straight as an arrow. I feel a little bit of it coming through the wheel, but that's just because this car has the most delightful steering. This is possibly the most connected front wheel drive car I've driven. Like, Albert Bierman, who was the chief engineer for this car, who used to work for the BMW M division, oh my God, just worked his magic on this car. This thing, I can just feel everything those front wheels are doing right now. This is what BMW M cars used to feel like before they became completely devoid of steering feel. Like, you know, BMW just doesn't do cars like this anymore. Now, it's pretty quick too. 0 to 60 in about 5.1 seconds. If you get this dual clutch, it'll probably be a little slower with the manual. That's about a 1/10 of a second slower than a Honda Civic Type R, which is not bad considering that the Civic Type R has a lot more power. We don't know how quick the new Honda Civic Type R is going to be, and we don't know how much it's going to cost either. But now I've got to mention the big red button, the N-Grin shift. So we've got 276 horsepower, but if I push this overboost button, this N-Grin shift button, I'm going to get 10 extra horsepower. So let me just get to a place where I have a straight enough road to use this, because it's pretty wild. All right, are you ready? I'm going to push it. Button pushed. There we go. N-Grin shift, 30 seconds. Oh, max power. Oh my God. And yes, the car definitely, you can feel that 10 extra horsepower. It does more than just add power too. It's going to put the transmission into like its maximum shift speed setting. You're going to get your fastest upshift. It's going to be in the lowest gear possible to give you the best power possible. See, now I'm out of it. It ran out after 30 seconds, and I definitely feel like it's not quite as quick there. But yeah, the N-Grin shift button is hilarious, and then it takes a little bit to recharge. You can't just like hit it right away. So 20 seconds, it's giving me a little countdown telling me that N-Grin shift conditions have not been met yet. And I'm sure you've been hearing the exhaust on this car, because this might be the loudest four-cylinder car I've ever driven. It just makes, I'm going to put it in manual mode so you can kind of hear what it does. It just farts. It's not even farts. That's like disingenuous to say. It sounds like it's exploding. It sounds like there is a bunch of mini explosions happening behind the car, and it is absolutely delightful. I absolutely love that. No car in this class, even the Audi RS3 with its really cool 5-cylinder engine, doesn't sound this good. So that's incredible that Hyundai was able to make it sound so good. So what I'm going to do now is tap this button again, because I don't actually love N mode fully. I showed you all the adjustability, and I think the suspension is just a little bit too firm to be driving around all the time in N mode. And I also like the steering in its like second setting, its sport setting instead of the Sport Plus. I think it's just a little bit too heavy. The steering weight just gets like a little bit too heavy. So this is my N mode, and I can seriously just enjoy this car. I don't think you need the suspension in its stiffest setting to really get the most enjoyment out of it. But I have all the other settings and the settings that matter. I can still go ahead. We're going to stop and do another launch control just because it's hilariously fun. Foot on the brake, ready? I can adjust my RPM on the steering wheel, which is really cool. Oh, you know, the farts that it makes on the upshifts with the dual clutch transmission are really cool as well. I really love that. And you do get a little bit of virtual sound. It's called the N sound equalizer. It's like adding a little bit of sound in here, but when you have an exhaust that sounds that good, it's really just like filling in the gaps of where the exhaust doesn't really sound quite as good. But trust me, this is possibly the best sounding 4-cylinder car. And I've driven a lot of this car's competitors. You know, you have the Volkswagen Golf R, which is a lot more expensive. It's a little quicker. You have the Honda Civic Type R, which is a lot more expensive. It's more powerful, and it's got a really, really good manual transmission, but it doesn't sound like anything, honestly. And when you compare this to those and you consider the price of this car, which we'll talk about in just a second, this is possibly the best enthusiast car on the market right now. You got the seats, you got the cool styling, you got the buttons that do all of the things, you got that amazing exhaust sound, and you have the tuning by Albert Biermann. You are basically getting a BMW M2 that is front-wheel drive, that has 4 doors, at under $35,000. And I really, if you're the type of person who just loves driving but can't get like a Miata or, you know, something like that that is so impractical that it can't be your daily driver car. If you need a daily driver car but you love driving and you need something that is the most fun per dollar, the Hyundai Elantra N is it. All right, so that was the 2022 Hyundai Elantra N. How much is this awesome sports sedan going to set you back? Well, even though this is an amazing car, the price is surprisingly low. $32,150 is the base, and really the only things that you need to add are a color. Some of the colors are optional on this car, and you need to decide if you want that dual clutch transmission for $1,500. I wouldn't blame you for getting the manual transmission. It is fantastic. It is really fun to drive with the manual, but I think the dual clutch is also really good as well. You get that N-grin shift button on the steering wheel that is so much fun. You lose that if you get the 6-speed manual, but it really just depends on your driving style. If you really want to drive this every day, you might want that dual clutch transmission, but you really can't buy this much fun for this price. Even a Mazda Miata will really set you back over 35 grand right now if you want like the fully loaded sporty club version. A Honda Civic Type R, we don't have pricing as of this recording, but based on how well the last one sold, I doubt that this nicer new model is going to be any cheaper. A Golf R, that's way over 40 grand. So when you consider the price of this car, there really is nothing else quite like it. Even a Golf GTI can hit the $40,000 mark, and even fully loaded, you're only talking about $35,000 with this Hyundai Elantra. And the one we're driving is just under $35,000 with destination. And when you consider that price, it just keeps showing that the Koreans are doing better than the competition, and they're doing it for less. The Hyundai Elantra N is a brilliant, brilliant car. And I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you did, please leave us a like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell. We have more videos like this always on the way. And if you want to read more about the 2022 Hyundai Elantra N, be sure to check out carbuzz.com. I'll see you next time.